Well, we're back, Kittitas Valley Sports Talk fans, mostly rodeo fans this week because this is a special rodeo episode brought to you by McGregor Company. Jon, welcome.
Welcome to you, Mr. Country, and our monthly rodeo episode. And I tell you what, I was kind of going back. I think we started the rodeo episode in December, so this is our third one. We had a heck of a start when we'll get to interview guys like Tyson Durfee and Jake Pratt and Sage Kimsey, and then of course we back it up with some incredible talent named Kerry Clift.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard he's like the rodeo queen of the rodeo board. Like he's got that kind of. Just kidding, Kerry.
Holy moly! I don't know how to respond to that, but my laugh will be. Right there, the podcast is over. There's nothing we can do to top that comment right there.
And then that's there.
Kerry, we got nothing but love for you.
Absolutely.
And all joking aside, you guys, Kerry and the entire rodeo board here in Ellensburg, just do a heck of a job. But if we're going to call him the rodeo queen of the rodeo board.
Queen, not princess, queen.
Queen. Okay. Gets the biggest crown.
Absolutely. Yeah. The other thing, they were going to schedule him this week, but next month we're going to have him and Brian Twardowski on talking about Kerry's going to announce the opening act for the rodeo, Ellensburg Rodeo. Brian's going to talk about the best of the best roping that's moving from the West Star Arena into the Ellensburg Arena beforehand, which is I'm so pumped to be a little bit closer. It's easier for me to sneak away from the tractor a little bit to get in town and watch that.
Yeah.
But, we're the Kittitas Valley Sports Talk podcast, and I'm so pumped. And rodeo's a sport. I'm not trying to say that, and someone's going to question me on that. But it really has connected this last week, and it's been connecting for a while. But here we're seeing reports of Madison Bumgardner down in Wickenburg, the team roping capital of the world, winning jackpot team roping. I mean, he won
Mason
20.
Saunders.
Mason Saunders.
Not Mad
his
Bum.
alias.
His alias.
How cool is that?
But so you wonder, because you hear about these guys that have these things in the contract that they can't do. Mm-hmm. So, and we were talking about this. I wish we could. Well, I'm glad we don't, but I wish sometimes we could record everything we talk about off the air, because this is one of the things that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So, it's in his contract, probably to not. I mean, I've read a few of those articles. I don't know officially if it's in his contract, but you hear about these guys that have things in the contract. You can't skydive, or I know Karl Malone couldn't ride a motorcycle, but he basically said, well. The watered down version was forget that.
Right.
So I'm wondering if Mad Bum is like that, or Mason Saunders.
Mason Saunders.
Yeah.
Is he technically a long lost cousin of Michael Saunders that played for the Mariners? Probably. They're both tall. One's Canadian, one's not. I know for a fact because Abe Silvestri, ex-baseball coach of mine, was a visiting clubhouse manager for the Giants, and he's got a new role now. But he talked about how Bumgardner, he has like a roping arena at his house down in Arizona.
Yep. And
I was pumped to see that because obviously a guy from the Ellensburg area that's a baseball guy. That was sweet. But maybe we'll see him. I know probably some of you guys. I feel like the roping community is really tight knit, and I'm sure that it wasn't the roping community that let that out. It was someone saw a post on Instagram or something. Yeah. And he was so excited. His smile was huge on that, and it looked like his legs were dangling pretty far under the belly of the horse too. So,
yeah, he is a tall, athletic specimen. One, he's got a heck of an arm, and he hopefully will rejuvenate his career there for the Diamondbacks in Arizona. But I said it in my text message to you earlier today. You heard it here first, Madison Bumgardner. I don't know who his partner is going to be,
right?
But team roping world champion in 2028.
Absolutely.
That's 8 years, so he's got another we'll just say another 4 or 5 years of pitching, and then I'll give him 4 to 5 years to get into team roping as a full-time event.
I'm going to go on a limb and say he's probably one of the few getting into the sport the first year does not need a sponsor. I bet he pays his way after those contracts he's had.
He probably doesn't need it, but maybe he's got so much. Now we're going off on a tangent here, but maybe he's got so much marketability,
right,
that he could be one of those crossover athletes where sponsors will be just throwing money at him because I don't know. He just looks like a cowboy too.
Oh, he talks like he's a. From what I've heard, he looks like he has that mentality. But so back to the rodeo, because
Mad Bum, Mason Saunders, whatever you're doing, keep on roping.
We need to get him to the best of the best roping in a couple of years when he's retired.
Imagine that?
That would be sweet. I would definitely
wear a Kittitas Valley Sports Talk logo.
100%. I think we can make that happen.
And you can get your wonderful wife, who's the creative talent here with
of
the
nice
cups.
cups. That's
if
right.
you're watching on YouTube, she can make that patch.
I think that can happen.
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll sponsor him.
Yeah.
It won't be much, Mad Bum, but it'll be something. And like I said, this episode is brought to you by the McGregor Company. That's our sponsor of the rodeo episode. It's that time of the year. I know I think Carrie, I talked about him being the rodeo queen of the rodeo board. He's running around with a chicken with his head cut off because it's beautiful outside. Spring's here. It's the end of February. And those guys are doing great jobs fertilizing all the fields and spraying and keeping us top to top. I know that they have a farm here that they do all the research, a test plot for us. And it's freaking awesome. As farmers, you got to appreciate that. So shout out to McGregor Company.
Thanks, McGregor.
And the other one I want to talk about, Fitterers Furniture, our main sponsor of the whole thing. And go down and see them on the corner of 4th and Main. And great stuff. We really appreciate you guys supporting this and supporting the sports in our valley. So let's talk some rodeo.
You talk about how the weather has been great. According to my car, the weather, my car temperature gauge was at 60 degrees today. Yes. It's still chilly in the morning. So when you're thinking of chilly, it doesn't seem like rodeo. But I'm telling you what, the wintertime, especially down south, I don't know if it's a busy time, but there's just so many big rodeos. Mm-hmm. And just a couple weeks ago, you had in Fort Worth, and you got Denver and Fort Worth in January, and then you got San Antonio and Tucson that just wrapped up, San Angelo as well. I mean, those are huge rodeos. And so when you compare the wintertime season compared to like basically Memorial Day through mid-September, it's totally different in that, I mean, you're going 100 miles an hour every day of the week in the summertime, whereas the wintertime you can maybe be a little more, I don't want to say the traveling is easy, but maybe a little more methodical or have a little more downtime. So you got you got Denver that pays well over $400,000, and nothing against Odessa, Texas, which really kicks off the season, but Denver starts around the same time as Odessa, but I mean, shoot, you're winning 10, 15 grand down there. And I mean, that's a huge start to your rodeo. And we've seen that, or to your season, pardon me. And we've seen that. I'm pulling up the standings, and I think you are too there, Country. But
the one thing I'm pulling up is you're talking about all those rodeos, and I'm just thinking how we were able to watch them these last 2 months. Is it the Cowboy Channel?
Cowboy Channel, regular network.
Right. And every night they have the rodeo on.
Yeah, and so, that's another thing. Let's not talk about the results yet. Let's just talk about rodeo in general and where it's coming from. So when I first started becoming a fan of rodeo in the late 90s and then covering it for the newspaper here in town, maybe definitely there was TV at the NFR, but I think that was when ESPN was still covering things. I can't remember when that stopped, but you didn't see, I mean, obviously there was no apps, there's no Wrangler Network apps or Cowboy Channel apps or RFD TV and stuff, but it is just absolutely amazing the accessibility of rodeo, either on your computer, your phone, your TV. And so I'm glad you mentioned that, because, I mean, those guys aren't sponsors or anything like that yet. Yet.
Huge
but,
yet.
It's gonna shoot. I mean, I've watched. I will admit that I've watched Cowboy Channel and or Wrangler Network while maybe shopping with my wife.
Absolutely.
Maybe the steer wrestling and the team roping gets more of my attention than sales on milk and cheese.
Okay, so you're in the grocery store. I was gonna say if you're like a clothing store, I mean it's just you're sitting in the chair while they're trying clothes on. You can catch it up. It's a great thing. Wish they probably would have had it men.
I'm not going to give
20,
any
30
truth,
years ago, but
yeah, I'm not going to give any truth to the absolutely correct rumor that I have sat down at a clothing store with like-minded men and watched rodeo on my phone.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you, and maybe I'm just throwing you on the spot, and I shouldn't have done that, but the formats that we've been seeing of the rodeos, it's like it's been different. Maybe it's just me watching rodeo or watching these rodeos on the TV for the first time.
I'm torn. I will say I'm torn because I understand. You had huge rodeos like Cheyenne, the daddy of them all, and Cheyenne can do what Cheyenne wants because it's one of the biggest rodeos in the world, and they went last year to a I don't know, like like a bracket type of format where, I mean, Cheyenne is so big, and Ellensburg's a huge rodeo too, don't get me wrong, but Cheyenne is a different level of big, and so they've got, basically like qualifying rounds where you're making maybe $2,000 or $2,500 to win the round, which, don't get me wrong, is a lot of money, but when you're used to leaving Cheyenne with 20 to 25 grand, now they've changed the format to where you can't win as much money in the go rounds, and it's more weighted to the a final round, not even an average.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that every rodeo has their own take of the new format and stuff. I'm not really the biggest fan of it because I like watching an average take shape. I like how it takes 4 days for us to figure out who's going to win in Ellensburg. But I'm a rodeo fan, and so I understand the average. I understand the go round and what the difference between a long go and a short go, and I know you do too. So, but I also understand the rodeos are trying to get maybe a more of a casual fan, maybe more of an urban fan.
Yeah.
I will say this: I remember an interview I had with Rick Cole, a longtime board member, and I was asking him his take on why does he think that PBR has more TV coverage than rodeo, or traditional TV coverage at least. And he said, a kid in an apartment in New York City doesn't understand bulldogging,
Right.
but he dang sure knows that in bull riding you got to stay on for 8 seconds. People can understand that. So I guess they're just trying to get to the more casual fan, and I like averages. I love knowing that a guy who's coming in 5th or 6th place on a Monday afternoon in Ellensburg could still, win $6 or $7 grand.
Yeah.
So,
And it's like what we talked about in the last episode. It puts some relevance on the regular season of basketball. It puts the relevance of how you done the whole weekend.
right.
And I'm with you. It is. I mean, I'm sure there's some excitement to it, but I just don't. I like how it was.
I would say this. I thought that, maybe that's a question we can talk about with the rodeo board on another podcast episode. Is a handful for 2 or 3 years, Ellensburg partnered up with Cinch.
That was
Cinch
awesome.
had the Cinch shootouts, and I thought that Ellensburg did a great job of holding to its tradition of an old school traditional rodeo. But, and I say it all the time, and anybody that listens to me talk, and unfortunately my wife and kids are forced to at times, but so pardon my repetition, but I've always said that Ellensburg does an incredible job of holding on to tradition but also adapting to the 21st century. What I thought that Ellensburg did really well is partnered with Cinch and their Cinch shootouts, to where that gave that playoff atmosphere. And we did that they did that on a Sunday Sunday evening, and it was great. I mean, shoot, let's remember Jake Miner and Garrett Rogers winning $10 grand at the Cinch shootout. Did it count to the PRCA world standings? No, but if I found $10 grand in my wallet,
I'd be happy with that.
I'd figure out something to do.
I
with
would
it,
be okay with that.
So I thought, and that those are quick hit, and it was like a really quick rodeo, and it was fun. It didn't really catch on, which is unfortunate, because I just thought it was really cool. I'm glad that it wasn't the way the rodeo went, but I'm also glad that it was like one of those quick hit things. And
I wish that would have caught, because we loved going to that. My wife and I.
It was
we
fun.
Weren't dating at the time, probably, but
no,
it was great. It was exciting. It was quick.
Yeah,
So we got in, got out. You got your excitement, and then the Sunday night's always a good night if you don't like crowds.
yeah,
The beer
yeah.
garden was awesome.
Yeah,
For me, that was more
Yeah.
of a
Well, you gotta
local
hydrate.
scene.
You have to
Absolutely.
hydrate.
You got to go down.
You have to hydrate. So I from a rodeo fan perspective, and I've been a fan for a little over 20 years now. So I mean, there's some people who could tell me how even traditional rodeos today are completely different than they were in the 50s and 60s and such. But at the end of the day, I just want guys to get paid. I would love to have more exposure for these guys, but not at the expense of, not at the expense to where they're untouchable by the fans. That's another great thing about rodeo is that, shoot, you're going to be you're going to be watching the greatest athletes in the world in Ellensburg or in NFR or Cheyenne or St. Paul, wherever you're going to be. But at the same time, once their event is done, you're probably going to be standing with them in the food line. I
Absolutely.
mean, they're just,
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back and talk more of the standings and how things are panning out after this message from McGregor Company.
Your spray application only works if it hits the target. Common sense, right? Hi, I'm Sam Kimmel, an account manager in Endicott, Washington for the McGregor Company. The threats to your crop and to your yield are largely below the canopy line. Conform DP by McGregor improves spray performance by minimizing drift and reducing fine spray particles that are unable to break through the top canopy layer to those tough-to-reach targets. With Conform, your investment stays on your field. Spray what you mean and mean what you spray with Conform DP, exclusively at the McGregor Company.
All right, we're back after that message from McGregor Company. John, let's talk about some stats, the hard numbers, that their rodeo season's well on their way. I'm looking here at the Pro Rodeo Tour standings, and the local guys are doing all right here. Let's see, we got the tie-down roping. We got Jake Pratt's in 16th right now, $3,500.
I'm pulling them up as we speak. So, that tour is really cool. There was a time when Ellensburg wasn't on it. They were always on it, and then there was a little bit of a break from it because they just changed things. And now I'm glad they're on it because that qualifies guys for Puyallup, and payout wise, Puyallup is not quite as big as Ellensburg, but it's a huge payday that you can qualify for, and So from the I can't remember off the top of my head. I think there's about 15 rodeos between now and Labor Day weekend that make up the tour. That so you got your world standings, but the money and points that you get at certain rodeos like in Ellensburg can count toward tour standings as well. And Ellensburg it's always going to be an elite rodeo, but the fact that it's the last one on the tour before you qualify for Puyallup, so. Those are one of those things where the world standings get all the attention, but the tour standings, I mean, shoot, that dictates the guy's paycheck as well, and schedule. So, and speaking of Puyallup, we were at the Puyallup Rodeo last year for the semifinal and final rounds, and watching that, some of the best athletes in the world in just a soup of an arena. It was so muddy, and it rained so hard. But yeah, those tour standings, world standings, always watch them. The tour standings, you got to just keep on watching.
All right. So like I said, Jake Pratt there, he's doing well, looking like he's sitting there in in the top 20. And we got Riley Minor and Brady Minor in the 21st in the standings right now. They're about around $3,000 earned. And like we were just talking just a second ago,
right?
There was another Minor doing well.
Miss Jordan,
Riley's wife.
Yeah.
Won a breakaway roping.
She is a breakaway roping extraordinaire, and it'd be nice to see her win a bunch of money as well.
Absolutely.
And and you talk about like what are they qualifying for? So one of the big ones here, it's on my list of things to discuss. The American.
Yes.
The American is that it used to be
right.
It used to be the 1-day rodeo, but now a 2-day rodeo. Where there's qualifying rounds throughout the year to get to the American, and that's where one round, boom, $100,000 to the winner, and it's amazing how hard you work to make it there, and then for a bulldogger, 3.5, 3.7, 3.8 seconds later, you can win $100,000, or you could leave with a pat on the back and maybe some swag that doesn't pay your bills. And so the American, that's going to be that's at Jerry World.
I was going to say that's where you were just at.
Cowboy Stadium, which is a absolutely huge stadium. They fit 2 rodeo arenas in there.
Wow.
They fit them to fit into the stadium there in Dallas, but just an absolutely huge place. And I've seen it on TV. It's a bucket list rodeo for me for sure. Dallas is not that difficult to get to, so maybe we're just going to have to go there.
I think that's going to happen.
Paid for by Kittitas Valley Sports Talk.
I think so. If you want to sponsor our trip, email us at kittitasvalleysportstalk@gmail.com.
Yeah, we take cold hard cash.
That's right.
Yeah. Or Venmo. Yeah,
absolutely.
But the American is the The 7th and 8th. So, on the 7th, hopefully, Kittitas and Ellensburg basketball teams are going to be playing for state titles that night. But in Dallas, the 7th, that Saturday is the opening day of the American. And then, of course, the 8th is when the checks are going to be paid out. And those people who qualify through not an automatic qualifier, but qualify through those qualifiers through the year, if they end up hoisting the big check, that's $1 million to them. And guys like Sage Kimsey and Wade Sundell have won that. Richmond champion, bareback rider who's won Ellensburg 3 times. He won the very first American. I mean, $1 million. I mean, that's life-changing money.
Heck yeah.
I mean, we were just joking about like $10,000 at the cent shootout being life-changing money, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
$1 million. I mean, I wouldn't know what to do except be scared.
That would be hide it and not tell anybody for a while. That's what I'd do.
Yeah.
I have plans, but it looks like they got some big ones coming up. Obviously, the American's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Rodeo Houston's on the way.
Yep.
We're just getting rolling in this thing.
The thing about Houston and the American right there
Mm-hmm.
is those used to be, Houston was part of the PRCA and then kind of went out on its own because it's so big it can. But last year, Houston and the American, could partially count toward PRCA standing. So if you win the $1 million or the win the $100,000 at the American, not all of it qualifies. I think it's $25,000 off the top of my head to qualify. Same thing with Houston as well, because Houston's got their $50,000 the shootout round, and so you win there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say the NFR is wrapped up for you, but let's just say you're in the driver's seat. And to know, and those are both March rodeos, so to know that you've got the NFR wrapped up, or at least the NFR is within an easy grasp of you. I don't want to say that takes the pressure off. You could still get hurt or still get in a funk on the road, but man, oh man, knowing that you got the NFR wrapped up, 9 months or 6 months before the season ends, I mean that's huge.
That'd be awesome.
And it funds your
The rest of the
your
year.
rodeo in,
Right.
It funds your entry fees, it funds your diesel, and all the it funds your trips to Cracker Barrel when you're in the middle of nowhere. So which sounds really delicious.
Come Cowboy Christmas, if you win early, you're probably eating a little better on that.
I think so. I think so.
Run
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Absolutely. Well,
So I would say plenty of winter rodeos to go. Rodeo Austin is around the corner. You talk about the American and Houston as well, but shoot, come April and May, we're going to be in the California Run. And actually, we're going to talk about huge rodeos, but let's get a little more regional. So you've got the High Desert Stampede down there in Redmond, Oregon in March. And for those that don't know, that's Central Oregon in March is still pretty dang cold, but I can tell you it's indoors, which is nice.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, before you know it, we got a ways to go before Labor Day gets here, but there's still plenty of rodeo that's going to be closer and closer. Like I said, Redmond, Oregon, and then California Run. I've been to the Red Bluff Roundup there. It's really cool, rodeo, and it's just a fun time. Before you know it, it's going to be Coulee City time for a Memorial Day weekend, and then 4th of July run. And do you have any rodeos that I have a rodeo bucket list that adapts every year. Any rodeos that are must sees for you?
I've always wanted to go up to the Calgary Stampede, and that's the only. I just never. I have the wrong occupation to be doing those things. And Cheyenne, of course, would be awesome.
Yeah,
but I was thinking about watching those on or the ones we just got done watching. It'd be fun to go down to San Antonio. That fits in my schedule to be able to go down to that. So before cabin season starts, I think that'd be a lot of fun to go see that. That'd be awesome.
I'd like to see. Well, the American and stuff, but there's everybody. If you talk to anybody, they say one's go to Joseph, Oregon. One, it's absolute God's country there. Incredible views and scenery, great rodeo and stuff like that. We have a bucket list of rodeos in terms of a bucket list to return to. So, the Sisters down there in Oregon is one of my favorites. Caldwell Night Rodeo is nuts. Really? Those people are incredible fans. And Randy Corley, the announcer there, he just has them in the palm of his hand. I mean, it's that the chemistry there is pretty dang cool. So, you know, it doesn't matter where you go. Rodeo is going to be great, but every rodeo has their own little, you know, a twist or, you know, tweaks on what they do and stuff. And just go. It's fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I need to get out and go see some more.
We'll go.
Maybe this haying season will cooperate so I can go.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
No, it's not going to happen. So, well, looks like that wraps up our special rodeo edition brought to you by the McGregor Company. And thank you, McGregor Company, again. And go check them out if you need some fertilizer and spray needs. And I can't wait for next month. We got a big episode planned.
That's right.
Might even have a special guest calling. We don't know yet. But
I don't know.
We won't tell them yet. All right. Well, until next time, folks, take care and get out there and watch some rodeos.